Hi guys, Dr. Erin Kinney here. We're going to be talking about natural stress busters tonight. I'm really excited to talk to you about this. It's a really important topic, and many of you guys know, if you're watching, that stress affects us in so many different ways, and most of us live pretty stressful lifestyles, and a lot of times stress can lead to chronic problems. If you suffer from headaches, fatigue, digestive disorders, muscle aches, back pain, allergies, insomnia, anxiety, depression, chances are some stress could be, what's triggered some of those physiological symptoms. So tonight, again, thank you guys for watching. Please comment, please ask questions. I'd love to answer them. Please like and do all those Facebook things. And if there's someone in your life that is undergoing a lot of stress and you think they might benefit, please share this video with them. We're going to cover a lot of stuff. First, tonight we're going to talk about the two different parts of the nervous system and how they control the body. And I'm going to talk about what happens physiologically when the body encounters a stressor. So we're going to talk about that. I really want you to understand how stress and why stress causes so many physical issues. And then after that, I'm going to talk about some of the things we can do to change our body's, again, physiologic response to stress. We're not always going to be able to actually change the stress in our life, but we can change the way that we and that our bodies react to it. So we're going to go through some very specific things that you can do to actually affect change on that response. So let's try to understand how the nervous system works. So the biggest thing to understand first is that, again, there are two parts of the nervous system. One is called the sympathetic nervous system, and one is called the parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system governs what we all know as the fight or flight response. And the parasympathetic nervous system, it is known as the rest and digest part of the nervous system. So it's really important that these two systems exist in a nice balance. That's kind of how we were designed. Unfortunately, today, most of us spend the majority of our life in the sympathetic or the fight or flight nervous system. So, I would say probably most people spend about 60 to 70% of their day in fight or flight, and not quite enough time in that rest and digest part of the nervous system. So let's talk about what happens, what turns on the fight or flight part of the nervous system. Well, it all starts in the back of your brain, in the part of your brain called the amygdala. And that's kind of it's one of the oldest parts of your brain, talking about evolutionarily, and it senses a stressor or a threat of some kind. And it's going to send a very, very rapid signal to another part of your brain called the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus will then tell the adrenal glands, which sit above your kidneys, to produce cortisol and epinephrine and norepinephrine. And these hormones are the three major stress hormones. So they are going to flood the body instantly, and they're going to allow the body to deal with whatever that stressor is. So some of the things that happen when your body perceives a threat, let's take, for example, that you're on a nice, relaxing walk in the woods, and all of a sudden you encounter a bear. Well, that bear is, might be a threat, right? So your body is going to immediately start turning on the fight or flight part of the nervous system. So your heart rate is going to increase, your breathing rate is going to increase, your blood pressure may raise, all the blood flow is going to go to your extremities, leaving the internal organs. Your pupils are going to dilate, and you're getting ready to run from that bear, or hopefully not to fight, but to deal with that stressor. So we want this to happen, right? We want all these physiologic responses to happen, and then once we escape the bear, we want the nervous system to relax, and we want all those hormones, the cortisol and the norepinephrine and epinephrine, to go away. So that's what happens in fight or flight, all of those. But one thing I forgot to mention, is that your blood sugar is also going to increase. So let's say on that walk in the woods, you maybe hadn't eaten since the morning, and it's, say, 1 p.m. You might have a little bit of a low blood sugar. Well, as soon as that fight or flight response kicks in, your blood sugar is going to go very high so that you have the energy to run. So, you know, if we contrast that same story with, let's say you're sitting at your desk, you're checking your email, and you get an email that says you have a deadline due, and your amygdala still senses the same, oh my gosh, fear, I need to turn on fight or flight. And so those same things might happen, but now we're sitting at your desk. You don't necessarily need to have your heart rate increased or your blood pressure increased. You don't need to have your blood sugar go up. So unfortunately, our system is wired not quite right for today's world. So, all right, so the second part of the nervous system, which we're going to talk about, is the parasympathetic, as I said, the rest and digest. And so when this system gets activated, it's kind of the opposite of the sympathetic. The blood flow is going to return to your internal organs, your pupils are going to contract, your breathing rate's going to slow, your heart rate's going to slow, your blood pressure is going to go down, and your blood sugar levels are going to decrease. So, you know, this is all signs that you are relaxed, right? So this part of the nervous system, it governs digestion, it governs urination, it governs sexual arousal. So all the things that, you know, should be good and functioning, but if you're constantly in fight or flight, you know, some of those systems might not work right. So like I said, sorry, that got, I had a phone call come in. We want them to be in balance. We don't want to spend too much time in either one. You know, if we do have a small stressor arise, we want the sympathetic nervous system to turn on so we can deal with the stress, and then we want to come back into the nice relaxed state. So I want to talk a little bit more about cortisol before we get into some of the things we can do to reset your nervous system. So cortisol, you know, it is the stress hormone, but it's also something that our body makes on a regular basis. So it is what governs your natural circadian rhythms. So when you first wake up in the morning, say you wake up at 6 a.m., the cortisol is actually what wakes you up. So that rise in cortisol causes you to wake up. And it should be at its highest early in the morning. It slowly starts to decline throughout the day. So it should be at its highest around 6 a.m. and at its lowest around 10 p.m. And so that kind of, that circadian rhythm is really important to keeping us healthy. And but if you go through a period where you're really stressed out, let's say you have a 6-month period, maybe you move, maybe you have a loved one diagnosed with, you know, a terminal illness, or maybe you have a baby, you become a new mom, or you're going through a rough patch in a relationship, and you've got your body's constantly pumping out cortisol, it's going to affect your natural circadian rhythms. And over time, you know, you might for the first month or two feel okay, you can cope with things, your cortisol's high, it's high, maybe you can deal with not getting enough sleep. But after a while, you know, those adrenal glands, which are actually producing the cortisol, they run out of the building blocks to make the cortisol. They start to get a little bit fatigued, and then your natural cortisol circadian rhythm can start to get disturbed. Maybe your cortisol is too high at night and too low in the morning, or maybe it starts peaking at around 3 a.m. I have a lot of patients that will talk about their sleep, and they say they always wake up at 3 a.m. and then they have a hard time going back to sleep. Well, that's usually, if there's someone who has a high stress lifestyle, it's usually their adrenal glands pumping out cortisol too early in the morning. So, and then that screws everything up for the rest of the day. Or sometimes people will say they're just so tired they can't get out of bed in the morning, but then, you know, they're tired at night, but they can't fall asleep, and that's usually their cortisol is going in the opposite direction. It's low in the morning and it's high at night. So, and the only reason this happens is if you've been under prolonged periods of chronic stress. All right, the other thing, I briefly mentioned how when your fight or flight is turned on, it causes your blood sugar to increase. Well, you know, this is all fine and well if you're running from a bear or you have something that you actually need that blood sugar. But again, if we're sitting at a desk and reading an email that triggers something for us to feel stressed, and our blood sugar goes up, and maybe we've just had a Snickers bar or a sugary snack, this is going to cause problems. And you know, a lot of people suffering from diabetes, you know, that eating a good diet is one thing, but if we don't change the stress and the way that your body responds to stress, you know, you're going to have a harder time bringing your blood sugar levels down. All right. The other hormones, I talked about cortisol some. The other two major stress hormones are epinephrine and norepinephrine, which they're neurotransmitters. They're also more commonly known as adrenaline. They're what you feel, when you're in fight or flight and you're like, oh, I've got all this adrenaline. But so when they're prolonged for high for long periods of time, they can cause anxiety, depression. They can sometimes trigger ADHD in kids. They can cause headaches. It can cause high blood pressure. So it's really important that we don't have those hormones constantly flooding the system as well. So the other thing, real briefly, before we get into what we can actually do to change the way things we respond to stress, is I want to talk about screen time. Well, here we're all staring at our computers, but every screen that you look at, whether it's your phone or your computer or your TV, it emits a blue light, and that blue light has a direct opposing action on your body's production of melatonin. And melatonin is the exact opposite of cortisol in terms of its circadian rhythm. So when your cortisol is low, your melatonin is going to be high, and that's how it should be when you go to bed. If we block the production of melatonin, your body's going to get a little confused, and it might think, oh, the melatonin's low, maybe cortisol should be high. So this has a really big effect on your circadian rhythm. So there are lots of apps now, and I think most phones you can turn off the blue light after around 7 p.m. This is really important to make sure you do. If you like to watch TV before bed, or if you are on your phone in the middle of the night, definitely make sure that orange tint is on. You can also get blue light blocking glasses. You can buy them on Amazon, and they'll also filter out some of that blue light. So that's another really important thing to just be aware of, is how much that screen time really affects our circadian rhythms and affects how much cortisol and stress hormones that we produce. So, okay, like I said earlier, it's almost impossible for us to remove all of the stress from our life. We can't always remove it, but what we can do is we can figure out ways to calm our body's response to it, or change our body's response to it, so that we aren't constantly triggered and go into fight or flight from even the tiniest little thing. So I'm going to talk about 3 big categories. The first I'm going to talk about is breathing and yoga and meditation, and kind of all in that realm. And then we're going to talk about some of the simple diet changes you can do that will help your body cope with chronic stress. And then I'm going to talk about my 4 favorite supplements that you can take that will help shift your body's response to stress. So, for those of you guys that are watching now, or if you're watching later, I teach this to all my patients, and some people think first when they start working with it that it's a little silly, but this is the number one most important thing to help you heal from any condition, and it's breathing. It's so simple, and we think, oh, I breathe every day, but a lot of us don't actually breathe correctly. So I want you to put one hand on your chest and one hand on your abdomen and take a deep breath. Most people, when I ask them to do this, they'll tell me, I'll ask which hand moves more, and most people will tell me that their top hand is moving. And this is pretty common because most of us spend our lives sucking our stomach in and sticking our chest out. And so we're breathing all up here. So this hand is moving. I guess I should turn like this. So this hand is moving instead of the bottom hand. So when you take a deep breath, you want your stomach to pooch out. You want the oxygen and all of the breath to go into your abdomen. And that, if we think about what we just learned about the 2 different governing bodies of the nervous systems, when you're in fight or flight, you're shallow breathing. You're breathing how you would breathe when you're running, which is all up here in the chest. So you're going. But when you're relaxed, and when you know how to relax, you should be breathing with your abdomen. If you ever watch a child breathe while they're sleeping, you'll see their belly rise and fall. You'll very rarely see their chest rise and fall. But most adults, we're kind of trained to stop breathing, right? When we're stressed, we're in fight or flight breathing all the time. So, and I have some patients, I had one last week that came in, she's suffering from anxiety and terrible insomnia. And we worked together for almost 20 minutes in the office, and she literally she could not breathe into her abdomen. She couldn't figure out how to get her abdomen to rise and fall. So for some people it's really hard, and I have patients that they have to practice this every day to really get it. If you've done breath work in the past, or if you've done yoga, you'll know what I'm talking about. But so this is a really simple thing, and it's free. You can do it anywhere. You can do it at your desk. You can do it sitting in traffic. So, and when you take 5 deep belly breaths, so a belly breath is, your one deep inhale where your belly expands, and then an exhale where your belly contracts. You do 5 of those, you will instantly switch your body from sympathetic fight or flight into that rest and digest. And it's amazing. Once you learn how to do it, it will calm you down immediately as soon as you finish those breaths. So this is something, if you're someone that, you're feeling like you're just like this all the time, start breathing. Start doing this 4 or 5 times a day, or even more often. Or if you're sitting at your desk and you do get an email that, that concerns you, or you get a phone call, or you get a text from someone that, causes you to feel a little antsy or a little nervous, just try to stop and take 5 deep breaths, and it doesn't take very long. The other thing, there's lots of different ways to get breath work in. Obviously, if you are someone who likes to exercise, or I really am a big advocate of yoga, because what yoga does is yoga teaches your body how to be active. So you're holding a yoga pose, if it's warrior, or but you're still breathing, and you're still doing deep belly breathing. So you're teaching your body how to be active, but to still be in that parasympathetic system. So this is really, really important. And you don't, if you're someone who doesn't like yoga, or you have another form of exercise that you really like, just add in a couple of poses. It's so easy to find stuff on YouTube to learn how to do yoga if you don't want to go to a class. Do a couple of poses a day and hold it for 4 or 5 breaths. And it sounds, I have some patients, that won't do much. It will really do a lot to help combat your stress. And yoga also, it trains your body how to, when you perceive a threat, it trains your body how to not freak out to things. So if you're looking for a new form of exercise, go try a yoga class. A lot of studios will let you go and try one for free and see if you like it. There are some forms of yoga that can be a little intense, like hot Bikram yoga, and there are others that are very, very relaxing. If you're someone who likes a good workout, go try a hot yoga class. It is an intense workout, but it will also train your body, again, how to be active but still be doing the deep breathing. So this is, that's something that's huge. Meditation is another really great thing, and this is, again, something that takes a ton of practice. I struggle with meditation a lot. I lay there and my mind is racing all over the place, but it's all about practice and keep coming back to it. And so meditation, again, it's teaching your body to, you're letting go of all of the pings that are coming in and out. You're trying to not let those affect you physiologically. So I'm not going to talk too much more about that. We're going to get into some of the diet stuff, but find something, whether it's doing the breath work, yoga, meditation, find something that you can do on a regular basis that helps your body, change how you respond to stress. And once you start getting it into your daily practice, you'll notice, okay, I'm sitting in traffic, I'm starting to feel a little anxious, my heart rate's increasing, I feel like I'm going into fight or flight. Start to do that deep breathing, and you'll notice, the traffic, I can't really control the traffic, I'm just going to sit here and enjoy myself. And so try to get something into your daily practice of, whatever it is to help calm the stress down. So, all right, the next thing we're going to talk about are diet changes. And there are so many different things you can do to your diet to help your body cope with stress. If you're someone who has a really high stress lifestyle, start small. Don't make huge diet changes, because that in itself can be stressful. I have a lot of patients that come in and we go through their whole history, and I always ask, what's your stress level like? And if there's someone who their stress level is over an 8, we'll make some diet changes, but they will be very, very small. Because if I say to them, you need to go gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, this is going to create way more stress, and I would rather not add more stress to the problem. So the simple things you can do are increase your fruits and vegetables and reduce processed foods. If that is the only thing that you do, that is amazing. So back when I was talking about the adrenal glands and how after prolonged periods of stress, they start to get kind of fatigued and they don't have enough of the building blocks to make the cortisol and the other stress hormones, and you get into what we call adrenal fatigue. They need a lot more minerals. They need a lot more vitamins, and they, the best place to get these are from fruits and veggies. So increase your fruits and veggies. Please try to buy organic. If you listen to my other videos or watch my other videos, you can know I'm a big fan of organic. If the only organic things you buy are the Dirty Dozen, you can go look that up on Environmental Working Group. They come out every year with a list of Dirty Dozen, the fruits and vegetables that have the highest pesticides. So please try to buy those organic. And so I usually will talk to patients a lot about when you go to the grocery store, just shop on the periphery. Don't go in the aisles, because that's where all of the junk food and the processed foods are. And those processed foods are going to be even more taxing to your adrenal glands. I'm going to talk about this a little more when we get into some of the supplements, but a lot of those processed foods they're fortified with certain B vitamins and other, or they'll say they're enriched. Basically, if we're talking about flour, they take whole wheat flour and a lot of times, and they strip it of all the nutrients, and then they add back in all these synthetic forms of vitamins. Well, it's really hard for your body to break down a lot of those synthetic vitamin forms, and those can actually cause more harm than, so you think, oh, I'm eating this bread that's enriched with folic acid and all of these things, and that can actually cause more problems. So one of the reasons that processed foods are really not good, they're not good for you for whatever you're dealing with, but in terms of managing stress, they are taxing to your adrenal glands. So, and the other thing diet-wise I talk to a lot of patients about if they're under a lot of stress is increasing your protein to carbohydrate ratio. So a lot of patients feel really good when they go on, the paleo diet is kind of the big craze, when they cut out grains and cut out starches, and they're kind of increasing their protein and having, protein and lean vegetables. This helps to balance the blood sugar and kind of keep things, because when blood sugar goes high, that can cause all kinds of issues. And as we've learned about, when you're under chronic stress, your blood sugar is naturally going to be a little bit higher, because that's what your body, evolutionarily is designed to do. So trying to eat a little bit more protein at every meal and not have as many carbohydrates. If you're cutting out processed foods, you'll kind of be doing this naturally. So those are kind of the foundation diet advice that I talk with patients about for stress management. Obviously, if you have a condition where if we're working on something with your GI tract, or if you've got some other chronic thing like interstitial cystitis, or something else where there might be some food allergies and stress is combined in there, we obviously want to avoid the foods that are causing a reaction. So that it starts to become a little bit more focused on what patient I'm working with. So the big takeaways are increase your fruits and veggies and reduce processed foods. If you're someone who making a diet change is not going to be that hard for you, I would really recommend going gluten-free, and for most people dairy-free as well. Those two food groups are really inflammatory, and if you're under chronic stress, your inflammation levels are going to be a little bit higher, so we don't want to add anything extra in there that can be inflammatory. So if you want to take on a big challenge, cut out gluten, cut out dairy. Thanksgiving's next week, so it might not be the best time to do it, but the week after Thanksgiving is a great time to make a major diet change. So all right. That's kind of diet. If you guys have questions, again, if you guys are just joining, please jump in and ask them. I'm happy to answer. I'm now going to talk about my 4 favorite supplements that help kind of reset your body's response to stress. So the first one is called, actually before I jump into this, let me just make a quick blanket statement about supplements. They're not all created equal. You have to really be careful when you're purchasing supplements. The most important thing to look at when you're deciding whether you want to buy something is at the other ingredient list. So go to the other ingredients and see what fillers they're using. Is it in a vegetable capsule? Is it in a tablet? Are there 15 other ingredients that I maybe can't pronounce the names? I don't know what it is. If there's a lot of other ingredients in the supplement, you probably don't want to buy it. It's going to be harder for your body to absorb. And you know, there are some brands that, you know, you can buy over the counter that are okay, but a lot of them, you know, at Walgreens or at CVS or Target, you know, they're cheap for a reason. So just make sure to read the labels and look what's in there. I tend to like, for actual vitamins, I recommend looking for a capsule and not something that's in a tablet. If it's a B vitamin, or which is something we're going to talk about, or something like magnesium, way better to get it in a capsule as opposed to a tablet. Herbs, when they're compounding herbs are okay if they're in a tablet, depending on what the other ingredients are. If there are a lot of other fillers or other things in there, you might not want to buy it. And when you are looking at herbs are something else you have to be careful with. You know, there's a lot of products that come over from China, and they are, you know, they have high levels of heavy metals. So you want to make sure you're buying from a reputable company. A lot of the, I call like nutraceutical or kind of pharmaceutical grade supplement companies, you can only purchase them through a practitioner. Some of them are available on Amazon. Some of the brands that I'm going to talk about tonight you can find on Amazon, but you have to be careful now with Amazon as well, because there's a lot of third-party sellers that are buying stock of a supplement. They might change it a little bit, or it might sit on a shelf for a really long time, so by the time you get it, you know, it might not actually be what you paid for, and a lot of times the prices can be a lot higher on Amazon. So just be careful with what you buy, and make sure you do your research. There are okay, I'm going to recommend a couple of supplements that I really like the brand, and if you are interested in purchasing that particular brand, send an email to us at info@kincare, KINNCARE.com with your name, phone number, and email address, and we'll send you a link to those so you can purchase those supplements. And again, as I said, you can look for those guys on Amazon. Just be careful, careful what you're buying. So, okay, let's get into what the first thing I'm going to talk about is a product called Adrenal Response. And so Adrenal Response is an herbal blend that actually helps calm down the cortisol response. So it's got several different herbs in it, and it works so when your body is overproducing cortisol, these herbs will help calm the cortisol down. So it contains an herb called ashwagandha, which is an Indian Ayurvedic herb. It's probably my favorite herb. It has a really nice balancing effect on cortisol. So if you're feeling like you have a hard time waking up in the morning and you're feeling kind of tired, the ashwagandha will actually work with your body to help your adrenal glands produce a little bit more cortisol, so that you can get up and get on with your day. If it's late at night and your cortisol is too high and you're having a hard time going to sleep, the ashwagandha will actually help calm things down. So herbs are really nice in this way. They, you know, because they're living creatures too. They work with our body, so they can be really wonderful. So the group of herbs that are in this adrenal support supplement, they're called adaptogenic herbs. So in that word, an adaptogen is something that helps your body adapt to different situations. So these herbs are all going to kind of work kind of as a like give and take to help keep your circadian rhythms normal. So the other herbs that are in there are something called rhodiola, which has a similar action to ashwagandha. Rhodiola is an interesting one where if you take lower doses of it, it can have more of a stimulating effect, and if you take higher doses of it, it will actually calm you down. So it's a nice one, and it really works to help balancing. And there's another one in there called Schisandra, which is a Chinese herb, and it has some immune boosting properties. So if you're someone who you feel like in the winter you are getting sick all the time, this Adrenal Response product is really nice because it'll not only help balance your cortisol, it'll help fight, infections and flus and colds. So this blend, it also has some mushrooms in there. So again, because most people that have chronic stress, they are going to be getting sick. Or maybe you don't get acutely sick, but you just constantly feel like you have sinus pressure, or you feel like you're about to come down with something, but you never actually do because you're too busy to let that happen. These herbs will really help boost your immune system so you can fight off anything and help keep that cortisol balance really nice. So there's mushrooms, and there's another herb called holy basil, which again is a wonderful cortisol calming herb, and it has some small amounts of some of the B vitamins, very small amounts, just to kind of help the herbs work properly, and it has a very small amount of magnesium. So you can also go look for, if you like the sound of ashwagandha, or if you like the sound of rhodiola, you can go buy that single herb. Just single ashwagandha can be amazing for so many patients. It also has a little bit of a thyroid boosting property to it. So if you're someone who has hypothyroidism, or hypothyroidism runs in your family, ashwagandha can also be really wonderful to just kind of boost your thyroid's function. So again, that product is called Adrenal Response, and it's made by a company called Innate, and they're a food-based supplement company. So I like their products a lot. So the next thing we're going to talk about, so we talked about kind of some herbal support. We're going to talk about B vitamins. So B vitamins are so important. The B vitamins act as cofactors for a lot of synthetic processes in your body. So when your adrenal glands go to make cortisol, or they go to make norepinephrine, there's a bunch of different steps that have to happen along the way. There's little enzymes that come and will take the proteins and put them together, and you need B vitamins as cofactors at every single one of those steps. So when I talked about your adrenal glands getting depleted or fatigued because of chronic stress, these are the major things that the adrenal glands run out of in terms of their building blocks to make the things they need to make. So if you're not getting enough B vitamins, you're going to have a hard time, your body's going to have a hard time making the cortisol that it needs, or making the other stress hormones. So something to note about B vitamins. I like patients to take a B complex, but you have to be, when you're looking for a B vitamin, you have to be extra attentive to not only the other ingredients, which we talked about, but the form of the different B vitamins. So a good B complex is going to include the full spectrum of B vitamins. So there's B1, which is thiamine, B2, which is riboflavin, B3, which is niacin, and then there'll be B5, which is pantothenic acid, B6, pyridoxine, B9, folate, and B12. So the biggest ones that you want to look at the form, which are in a lot of common supplements, are the folate and the B12. The most common, cheap supplement will contain a form of B12 called cyanocobalamin, and it's kind of crap. Your body is not going to absorb it, and you're wasting your money. So if you've got something that contains cyanocobalamin, don't bother taking it. This is also when I was talking about some of the processed foods being enriched with certain B vitamins. A lot of the enriched vitamins will contain this cyanocobalamin form. So what you want to look for is methylcobalamin, or adenomethylcobalamin. I think I might have screwed that one up, but methylcobalamin is pretty commonly found, and so that is a B12 form that has already been methylated. So this is a topic for another night, but in order for your body to utilize B vitamins, the body has to add something called a methyl group onto that B vitamin, and it's hard for your body to take that cyanocobalamin form and absorb it, methylate it, and get it into the cell. So oftentimes your body just doesn't even absorb it at all. So if you take the methylcobalamin form, it's very easy for your body to assimilate and absorb it, and then you can actually get it into your cells and utilize it. And I'm sure most of you have heard about vitamin B12. It's really important for energy and for memory and for so many different things. So you definitely want to look for the form of methylcobalamin. So the next really important form that you want to look at is the folate. You most often we'll see it in things as folic acid, which is the synthetic form of folate or B9. And folic acid is, again, it's hard for your body to absorb. And there's a hot topic right now. A lot of people have this genetic mutation, and it's called MTHFR, and it's a gene that creates an enzyme that helps your body take folate, methylate it, and then get it into your cells. And if you have a mutation in that gene, you're going to have a really hard time just, using the natural form of B9, which is folate. Forget about folic acid, you won't be able to process that at all, and it can actually start to cause a lot of problems. So if you're taking a supplement that has folic acid in it, again, get rid of that one as well. It's not great for you. And folic acid is in a lot of things. It's also, a lot of things are enriched with folic acid. So you want to look for just folate is one of the best. That's the natural form. That's what you get if you go and you eat dark green leafy vegetables. You're going to get folate from those. You can also, they have already methylated folate, so it'll be called 5-MTHF, so 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. And so look for that. The B complex product that I really like is one called Stress B complex, and it's by a company called Thorne. And it has the correct form of all the B vitamins. There are tons of other B complex supplements out there that have good forms of vitamins, and so you can do your research and find one. Again, if you're interested in purchasing the supplements that I recommend, you can email your info to our info@KinCare web email. So, all right, so we had the herbal adrenal support and a good B complex, and with those two things, you're going to be helping calm your body's cortisol production, helping regulate a nice circadian rhythm, and with the B complex, you're going to be giving your adrenal glands all of the building blocks that they need to help make cortisol when it needs to, and to help calm you down. I didn't talk too much about the B5 and B6. Those two are probably the most important cofactors, and if you're someone who's suffering from insomnia or anxiety, B5 and B6 can be really, really beneficial. So really important to get those in. Sometimes people will say, oh, I just take B12 or I just take folate and B12, but it's really important to get all of the B vitamins together. So we talked about those guys. The next supplement that I would recommend for someone who's under a lot of stress is magnesium. So magnesium, like the B vitamins, is used as a cofactor in so many different processes. And it gets depleted when we're under stress. It also gets depleted if you drink alcohol or if you take medications, because your body has to use it up in, when it's getting rid of alcohol or when it's coping with stress. So it's really important to take a magnesium supplement if you're under a lot of stress. I have a lot of patients that take, it's called Calm Magnesium. It's a powder form. You can mix it with water. It's easy to adjust the dose. And you can pick that up at Whole Foods or sometimes at CVS or Rite Aid. And it's a nice form of magnesium. So when we're looking at magnesium supplements, it's really important, again, to look at the form of magnesium. So the best form, in my opinion, is magnesium glycinate. So you'll see most magnesiums, it'll say magnesium on the bottle, and then when you go to look at the actual ingredients, it'll say magnesium, and then either, glycinate or magnesium oxide or magnesium citrate. There'll be another, and that's just the form that it's in. So I really like glycinate. Some of the side effects, if you take too much magnesium, if it's not the right form, can be cramping and diarrhea, and basically you're taking the magnesium and then you're just losing all of it through the stool. So we don't want that to happen. Magnesium oxide is probably the most is the form that has the most laxative effect. So if you're taking a supplement that has that in there and you've maybe had some digestive issues and you hadn't really figured out why, the magnesium oxide could be the issue. So you want to stay away from that one. So as I said, I really like magnesium glycinate. Magnesium taurate is another really nice form, and that I use that a lot with patients who have high blood pressure or they have some sort of cardiovascular thing going on. It has an affinity for the heart tissue. So if you're looking for help with something like that. If stress is, giving you some cardiac symptoms, magnesium taurate is a nice form. But for everyone else, I usually recommend the magnesium glycinate. The Calm magnesium powder is in a magnesium citrate form, which it's an okay form. That powder does, if you take too much of it, it can have a laxative effect. Some people use it for that effect. If you're suffering from constipation, you can, use a little bit of magnesium to help keep things moving. And constipation can be a sign of stress. So when you add some magnesium in there, it can help regulate things and get things going. All right, so we have the herbal, adrenal stuff, the B complex, the magnesium, and then the last thing that I recommend, kind of across the board for patients who are under chronic stress is a good quality fish oil. So, one of the most common things that I hear from patients, as kind of like a side note, they'll say at the end, oh, my memory has gotten so bad. I can't remember anything. I have to write everything down. And so being under chronic stress all the time, your memory is going to go. Your memory's not going to be as good. I learned this after becoming a mom. I felt like I used to have this memory, like I wouldn't have to write things down. I could just remember everything. But after baby one and then after baby number two, it's like I don't know where my memory's gone. I've got to write everything down. It's starting to come back, but it helps. It really helps to take a fish oil. So fish oil is going to contain EPA and DHA, which are two fatty acids that are really important to help your body rebuild receptors. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It will also help to balance blood sugar. It'll increase your memory, as I was saying. It can help with reducing achy joints and then, just improve your overall well-being. So when I didn't go into this too much, but when your body is, when we've got that, we perceive a stressor and the brain is telling the adrenal glands to produce cortisol, we deal with the stress and then it's over. What happens to tell the body to turn the cortisol production off, it's what's called a negative feedback loop. So some of that cortisol will come back to the brain, and there's a receptor there, and it's called the glucocorticoid receptor. And that cortisol will bind to that receptor, and it basically turns off further production of cortisol. And so this is kind of how the body goes from being stressed to being calm. Well, in a lot of situations where you're constantly putting your body into fight or flight over and over and over and over again, that receptor in your brain to turn off further production of cortisol gets what we call down-regulated, meaning that it's not going to accept. It's like we've punched it too many times, and it's like, I'm sorry, I can't deal with you anymore. So the receptor doesn't work. So the cortisol goes back to turn off more production of cortisol, and the turn-off valve is no longer functioning. So your body just keeps pumping out cortisol. So one of the ways that we help to kind of reset that receptor is through fish oil. If you're familiar with the way type 2 diabetes comes about, this is kind of a similar concept. In type 2 diabetes, what happens is the insulin receptor on the cell stops working. So, if you're eating a ton of sugar, what's supposed to happen normally is the sugar comes into your blood. In order for the sugar to get into the cell, insulin has to bind to the insulin receptor, and then sugar can come in. So in type 2 diabetes, someone has eaten so much sugar that insulin receptor is just like, I can't take this anymore. And so the receptors just stop functioning, and the body will also stop making those receptors. So fish oil is really important to help reset and rebuild some of those receptors. So, and as I said, what we can change, we can't always change the stressors, but what we can change is how your body responds and how, so maybe, if you're someone who, you feel like every little thing sets you off and you just feel stressed about everything, your negative feedback receptor loop is probably not working very well if you have a hard time calming down after you've been stressed out by something. So, so fish oil is going to be really important to help reset that receptor. So fish oil is another one we have to be careful about when we're shopping for what supplement we want to buy. You want to make sure it's a good high quality from a company that has good standards about where they're sourcing their fish. You know, with all the radiation stuff that happened outside of Japan, there's been a whole thing about, you know, making sure that, you know, the fish oil that you are buying is not coming from those waters, is coming from somewhere that, you know, hasn't been affected by the radiation. And there's also, you know, some fish oil companies that contain heavy metal contaminants. So fish oil is one, you probably don't want to buy this at Costco or you don't want to be cheap on your fish oil. So look for a good quality one. You know, the one over-the-counter brand that's good quality is Nordic Naturals. They tend to source everything from good sources, and you can pick that up at Whole Foods. It's definitely on Amazon. I like that brand, and I like, you know, some of the other supplement companies. Just one, Designs for Health makes a really nice fish oil. So I have a couple different options on the ones that I recommend. So fish oil is, you know, really, really important. So all right, just to recap the things, you know, we talked about a good herbal adrenal adaptogen support, and we talked about a good B complex, a magnesium, and a fish oil. And so these are pretty basic in terms of if you are taking a medication. The only thing you'd want to watch out for is if you're taking any sort of blood thinning medication, you would want to talk to your doctor before you add in fish oil. It should be okay, but fish oil can have a little bit of a blood thinning effect, so want to just make sure that's not going to cause any issues. Magnesium is not going to cause a problem. You know, as I said, if you take too much of the wrong form, the only issue it may cause would be a little bit of diarrhea. And as far as the herbs, the adrenal support, there's no contraindications for any medications. If you are on a lot of medications and or you have a health concern that you're just worried about adding in an herbal supplement, definitely check with your doctor, or if your doctor doesn't know about it, you know, find a professional in your area who does. Naturopathic doctors we're really well trained in herb drug nutrient interactions, so talk to one of us. And yeah, so if you want a link to the specific brands that I recommend, again, email your info to info@kincare.com, and we can send that out to you. It'll come from a company called Fullscript. It'll just say you've been sent a prescription, and you can go in and order. You can also, that'll kind of give you access to a bunch of really good grade supplements. So if you want to search for other supplements, it's great. And you'll get a 15% discount, so that's nice that too. So I think that's all we're going to cover tonight. If you guys do have questions, please type them in. You know, if you're not watching this live, ask questions later. You know, I'll try to get back to you. And thank you guys so much for watching. And also, if you have other topics that you want me to talk about in the future, you know, you can send me an email at info@kincare. If there's something that you really want to learn about, you know, send me a message and say, hey, can you do a talk on this? Happy to you know, provide this information. There's so much information on natural health out there, and it's sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming on where to start and what to do and how to look for a supplement. So I really love educating, you know, whoever I can about where to start. So thank you guys again for watching, and have a good night.